you're a longtime fan of I Dream of Indie Games, then you likely know that I love JRPGs. From classic Final Fantasy games to Chrono Trigger, it was really a special time to be alive. The glorious 32-bit era was no slouch either. I wrote fanfiction based on some of my favorite characters. I recorded awesome musical compositions from these games on my Talkboy. Yeah, remember those? Home Alone 2? I also credit my advanced early reading skills from playing so many of these damn games. I was top of my class, for a while at least. It's 2022 now, and I'm no longer a young teenager filled with hopes and dreams. The landscape of gaming has changed quite a bit, but the more things change, the more they stay the same, as they say. Many great indie developers continue to carry the 90s torch of this genre, with the recently released Rise of the Third Power, which I absolutely adore, and other fan favorites like Crosscode, just to name a few. In fact, speaking of Crosscode, today's review is of Chained Echoes, which comes to us from the same publisher, but a different developer in Matthias Linda. Apologies if I said that wrong. In 2019, Chained Echoes exploded on Kickstarter, managing to double its funding goal and further illustrating the demand for classic JRPGs. Fans of the genre have of course been excited for this title, and why wouldn't they be? Based off of the trailers, it looks like an epic 16-bit RPG with all of the over-the-top political intrigue we've come to expect, a glorious bombastic soundtrack with swelling orchestration, turn-based battles are here, crafting, airships. It's everything I love in a video game. But what really surprised me about Chained Echoes is the sheer amount of strategy involved in even the most basic of enemy encounters, at least on the normal default settings. This isn't going to be one of those role-playing games where you can sit back and mash away on a tech, at least not very often. Chained Echo's storyline and overall writing is a little bit jumbled, particularly in the first few hours where characters are introduced at pretty rapid rates. Twists and turns also occur at what feels like breakneck speed. I had a great deal thrown at me all at once, which isn't how I personally enjoy my narratives. One minute you're this character, then you're another character, then you're back in time, then you're in the present. It really just all kind of left me scratching my head a bit, but thankfully, Chained Echoes does eventually become a bit more focused. My other problem with the writing is that I just didn't really feel attached to many of these characters despite the game's best efforts. The character of Rob, for example, performs one act early on in the game that made him completely unlikable to me, but I was unfortunately stuck with him for a long time. I don't want to deal with you, Rob. This isn't to say that I hated the entire cast of this game. I'd actually argue some of these characters are quite entertaining. My favorite was the red-haired thief named Sienna. The actual dialogue between the cast, though, it's not bad, I guess you could say, but there are a few instances where swear words felt a bit forced, and I don't know, it just felt like sometimes the writing didn't always match the backdrop or the world of Chained Echoes. Speaking of that world, Volandis is a lovely one to explore, broken up into various kingdoms that feel unique from one another. That said, Chained Echoes feels quite linear for a good portion of the game, and things won't really open up until much later. You do have a nice travel system here where you'll come across crystals that act as teleport points. As I alluded to at the start of this review, the combat shocked me in this title, not in that it's turn-based, but in how much strategy is involved. I'm not going to go over every detail because that would take forever, but what presents itself as a battle system akin to, say, Chrono Trigger reveals itself to be much more. You have your standard HP bar, of course, and then you also have tech points. Sounds simple enough, right? But where the real strategy begins to show itself is in the game's overdrive gauge. The goal is to stay in the green area of this bar, as going into the red will lower your defense, thus enemies dish out more damage. To stay in the green, you have to carefully pick which actions to use. Some skills may raise the bar too high, others may lower it and keep you in the safe zone. It's a neat idea, but I gotta be honest, I just found it to be another thing to worry about, and that's a little bit annoying. Keep in mind, I enjoy the sometimes turn your brain off mentality in a JRPG where I just mash away at attack, and this system sometimes made me feel constrained. I want to and need to heal desperately, for example, but nope, going in the red, and this enemy's gonna kill me now. It makes Chained Echoes way more of a strategy game than I was expecting, and hey, some people are gonna love it for that, but for me, it made lots of encounters feel like a chore. Another gripe I had with this game was the leveling system. This system isn't so much about experience earned, rather SP points, which are really not all that easy to come by, and it takes forever to learn and upgrade things. I just felt like I was stuck in mud, very slowly getting just a hair stronger. You have grimoire shards that can be used, and then action skills, passive skills, stat boosts. It just really seemed more convoluted than it needed to be, though this system does allow for a great deal of freedom. If you want to focus on boosting stats first, you can totally do that, but it's going to be a slog, and the more I played the game, the more I realized it has a bit of an identity crisis. This is a strategy game underneath the veil of a classic JRPG, and sure, I enjoy some strategy, it's just not what I was looking for out of this particular experience. I do have to say though, while many enemy encounters were sometimes long and drawn out affairs, boss encounters can be a ton of fun. The mix of strategy elements serves these fights well. I just wish the whole game wasn't built that way. And why the heck are items so sparse? There were times in Chained Echoes where I was legitimately screwed. Everything is expensive, and some areas you aren't able to teleport out of. In one instance, I was stuck on this ridiculous elevator ride through a cavern where I had to worry about toggling switches and fighting an overpowered enemy, as if I didn't have enough to worry about. On top of that, I had no revives left, and one character that was good at healing, there was a huge disconnect. It was infuriating. The only way I got out of this situation was thanks to the game allowing players to lower enemy stats in the options menu, which I really didn't want to do, but I felt like I had no choice. The combat changes even further down the road, but it takes forever and ever. This game is a slow burn. In terms of visuals, Chained Echoes is a fantastic achievement, successfully capturing the magic of the 16-bit era while still feeling fresh. Animations are nice, spells and screen-filling rage attacks look awesome, and bosses are exceptional to watch in motion. The world, as I mentioned, looks and feels alive. So much love and care went into this game's visuals, and it was worth what I assume to be a ton of work. Equally stunning is the game's impressive soundscape of epic battle themes, overworld compositions, and soothing melodies that will accompany you across this 40-plus hour adventure. It's a beautiful set of musical pieces that wouldn't feel out of place in a number of classic JRPGs, so bravo there. But I don't know, I expected to love this game, and I just didn't fall in love with it like I had hoped, but that doesn't mean there isn't a great deal to like about it. This battle system will speak to a lot of you out there. I believe that. It just wasn't for me. The visuals and sound design are top-notch, and while a bit cobbled at times, some of the writing here is pretty decent, with a few characters that I ended up feeling really attached to. The combat was just a bit more complex than I personally needed it to be, and I'm not sure it's what fans of the genre will be looking for out of Chained Echoes. This is a well-made product in a lot of ways. It has its heart in the right place, but a game that overthinks things far too often instead of truly delivering a classic JRPG experience.